There's a SpongeBob episode that I watched recently that has quite a few important underlying themes to talk about, but there's one in particular that I would like to talk about today, so do stay tuned if you're interested. This channel exists to encourage you to continue to be a good person through lessons that are primarily rooted in biblical and Stoic principles. So without further ado, let's get into today's talk about the SpongeBob episode Abrasive Side, or the Abrasive Side, rather. To quickly explain the story that plays out within the episode, it opens with SpongeBob having slept on the sidewalk in order to get the first spot in line for the bus to go to Glove World, which he was planning to go to with Patrick. Now a guy comes up and doesn't even see him there, so he actually steps on him. Then SpongeBob explains that he slept there to be first in line, and the guy doesn't have much interest in his story. He just says, "Oh, that's cool, can I cut you?" And SpongeBob's like, "Well, I slept here so I could, okay, you know what, that's fine. I guess one person, you can cut me." But letting the one guy cut him turns into letting a ton of people cut him. And just around that time, as he's like 15 people behind where he should have been, Patrick shows up and notices that SpongeBob didn't have the first spot anymore. So real quickly, I'd just like to point out that not only do you do yourself a disservice by letting people walk all over you, you do a disservice to others too. Like, again, with this example of Patrick being disappointed because they didn't get the first couple spots. And that's always the case, too. When you are anything less than who and what you should be, the world suffers because of it. So let that not be a discouragement, but rather an encouragement. Just as the bus is about to take off with everyone in it, Sandy says that she needs SpongeBob's help, and she essentially guilt trips him into doing it. And so he watches as Patrick hops on the bus, and the bus leaves with everyone. So SpongeBob helps Sandy with her experiment, and then lo and behold, Mr. Krabs needs a favor from SpongeBob as well, so he does that. He needs SpongeBob to tell Pearl no about getting some shoes or something. And then SpongeBob's grandma needed help crossing the street, and so fair enough, SpongeBob helps with that. But as he does that, a bus arrives and leaves again. And just around that time, Patrick actually returned from Glove World, and he is reasonably so disappointed that SpongeBob couldn't make it, and he tells SpongeBob that he needs to learn to say no. And he's right. SpongeBob then returns home and is in tears, wishing that he had, in his words, thicker skin. So Gary overhears that and orders a package for SpongeBob. And sure enough, the Abrasive Side arrives. SpongeBob puts it on and then begins to not only say no to people, but to be a full-on jerk. He even declined his grandma's request to walk her across the street when he was right there with her. He also made Sandy's head disappear, which, just watch the full episode for the context on that. And as Mr. Krabs asks SpongeBob to work an extra 17-hour shift, SpongeBob then says he would only do it if he was paid overtime. Now, that wasn't actually a ridiculous request from SpongeBob, but more on the nuance of this idea later. SpongeBob then told Squidward off, to which Squidward actually showed some appreciation for that. But that said, it's true, Squidward wouldn't appreciate, what am I saying? That said, it is true, Squidward wouldn't appreciate continued interactions like that. And for proof, do check out my recent video on the episode Squidville, where that idea is talked about in length. SpongeBob then goes on to wreck Patrick. He insulted him and made him actually run home because of how, I guess, hurt he was. Just then, SpongeBob realized what was even going on. He looks in the mirror and sees this Abrasive Side and how, I guess, mean it looks anyway. He then runs to everyone who he had told off to solicit their help in removing the Abrasive Side, to which Patrick and Mr. Krabs initially decline. But he then makes it to Sandy and explains that he got the Abrasive Side to change his personality. Sandy then tells him to not try to be someone he's not. More on this topic later. Sandy then tells SpongeBob that who he is just fine. And this is the case with some people, and it's also not true of others. So don't think you have don't, I guess, ever think you have no improvements to make. Everyone does, always. That said, don't change yourself in order to fit in or be someone you're not meant to be. But that idea is worthy of its own video, so stay tuned for that. Sandy and Patrick then help SpongeBob get the abrasive side off, and it looked rather painful, but that's actually a good representation of ridding yourself of bad character traits. It's certainly not easy, and it will take time, but it's well worth it. At the close of the episode, SpongeBob then, to his great credit, goes to right his wrong, particularly in regards to his previous interaction with his grandma. He apologizes to her for leaving her on the sidewalk and not walking her across the street. The episode then ends on a bit of a sour note, though, because it turns out SpongeBob's grandma had got her own abrasive side. Now, this is another great reminder that everything you do matters. You are always setting an example, always. So make sure it's a good one. Make sure you're a good example. Your actions inspire people for better or worse. It ought to always be for the better. So the basic idea that some might get from this episode is to not be a pushover or a quote-unquote nice guy. Now, as a side note, I think we should stop using the term nice guy because it's not a proper term to describe what it actually means when people use it. You should be nice, generally speaking. And if a kid grows up hearing the phrase, don't be a nice guy, or the advice, I guess, some are then going to become the inverse of that, a mean guy, which is terrible and it's detrimental. The term pushover is much better, and it doesn't take much explanation because the name essentially explains itself, at least in large part. So again, the idea is to not be a pushover, but I'd also add to that to not become something worse either, like with what happened to SpongeBob in this episode. There is something to be said about making a decision based on a very intentional effort to make someone else's day. If, for example, SpongeBob had let the one guy cut him because he wanted to be kind to that guy, then fair enough, and bravo to SpongeBob. That said, there comes a point when it isn't just you being kind anymore. It's other people being inconsiderate by abusing your kindness. This is a very convoluted idea because it's very situational. For example, some quote-unquote favors some people might ask of you are simply ridiculous. Like with the example earlier, Mr. Krabs had told SpongeBob to tell Pearl that she can't get a certain set of shoes, or a pair of shoes, I should say. That is totally Mr. Krabs' job. But the flip side of that is people will use that argument or phrase of it's their job as an excuse to just be a jerk. For example, let's say you drenched the entire bathroom counter at a restaurant with water that was otherwise pristine looking and completely dry before you came in, but you justify leaving it that way because, again, it's someone's job to clean it up. Yeah, fair enough, it is, but it's also your job to be a good person. All that to say, once again, that this idea of doing good but not letting people abuse your kindness is tricky to master and is very situational, once again. So just practice. An episode that does a great job of portraying this idea is The Sponge Who Could Fly. It's in Season 3, Episode 19. Everyone begins by making fun of SpongeBob for having a dream of flying with the jellyfish. But once he does succeed, he's bombarded with requests from the entire town. The requests including, but not limited to, scratching Patrick, helping Larry pick out a tie, cleaning Squidward's bathtub, and cleaning Mr. Krabs' garage. The entire town then goes on to form a mob, chase SpongeBob, and then shoot him out of the sky with a cannon, all because he was done doing favors for them, for now at least. How crazy is that? One fish that happened to be wearing an outfit nearly identical to SpongeBob's, which I thought was kind of funny. He even said, he owes us favors, talking about SpongeBob. Yeah, right. The point is, knowing when to draw the line on it, not your goodness, but simply knowing when you're being taken advantage of, rather, and putting an end to it is important. It's good to have the ability to completely wreck someone, metaphorically, so long as you never use that ability to do so. It's similar to physical combat and defense. It's good to be able to defend yourself. That requires you to be able to fight, obviously. But a good warrior doesn't go around beating people up, though he has the ability to. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Jordan Peterson says if you are not capable of cruelty, you are absolutely a victim to anyone who is. And he also says a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. Romans 7 verse 19 through 20 reads, "For the good that I want, I do not do, but I practice the very evil that I do not want. But if I am doing the very thing I do not want, I am no longer the one doing it, but sin which dwells in me." This is similar to SpongeBob's situation where the abrasive side of him almost had a mind of its own, and SpongeBob didn't even realize when it was in control at first. The idea being not that we don't have a choice to do right or wrong, for we certainly do, and I will never say otherwise, but rather when we act contrary to how we know we ought to, you aren't even embodying your true self anymore, at that moment at least. So let that be an encouragement then to act in accordance with the integrity that you ought to. As it says in Ephesians 4, verses 1 through 3, "Therefore I, the prisoner of the Lord, implore you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling with which you have been called, with all humility, gentleness, with patience, showing tolerance for one another in love, being diligent to preserve the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace." SpongeBob, in his own words, said that he got the abrasive side to change his personality. I don't think that that's worthwhile or good. Changing your character, or improving it, or working on it rather, is a good thing, and everyone should be working to do so always. But I'd venture to say that we were made, yes, made by God with the personalities we have for a reason. Some people are more naturally inclined to focus and find their meaning and potential in physical work or activities. And good thing, we need those people. Others still find their calling in intellectual work and the like, and we surely need those people too. I suppose I would define your personality as your natural inclinations that do only good and no harm. That at least is your true personality, whether you're living according to it or not. Character then is something you work on. To whatever extent acting with virtue comes naturally or not, it doesn't matter. Character must be worked on by everyone. The analogy that comes to mind is that of your body type and physique. Your body type is part of you from birth, as far as I understand it. Whether you're an ectomorph, mesomorph, or endomorph, and I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly, that is your body type. This would be similar to your personality, though it does have to be pointed out that, again, in terms of personality, you can suppress who you are supposed to be, I would say, though you can't literally change your body type. But apart from that, at any rate, your physique then is more so like your character. Regardless of your body type, you still have to lift and eat right in order to see the full potential of your physical health. Those are both working definitions, I suppose you could say, meaning I think they're good ones, but I'm open to being told that they're not. If you have better definitions or explanations for character versus personality, do let me know, because I would love to hear what you think. So to reiterate the main idea behind the lesson and I guess behind the video that I'm trying to portray, certainly don't be a pushover, but don't be something worse either. Have the ability, metaphorically speaking, to demolish someone, but never do it. Remember that not only do you need to be strong for your sake, but also for sake of others, particularly for those who have yet to become strong themselves. Be strong but not rude. Be kind but not weak. Be bold but not a bully. Be thoughtful but not lazy. Humble but not timid. Proud but not arrogant. And have humor but without folly. Like I said, do check out the video I have talking about Squidward and the episode Squidville. There was an important lesson to be learned there, or I guess an important question to ask yourself. So do check that out if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching this video. I sincerely hope that it helps you in some way. So do apply it today, apply it where applicable. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. As always, it's an honor.